Hello everyone, and welcome to your exercises on page 229. This video will cover questions 7 through 9. So question 7, we have these three fractions that need to be added together, which means, of course, that the first thing that we need to do is make sure that they have common denominators. And it might not be clear to you, at least at first glance, what that common denominator should be. Well, the trick is to notice that this right here is really a perfect square problem, and it would break down into y plus 2 times y minus 2, wouldn't it? So we could make y plus 2 times y minus 2 our common denominator. So I'm just going to draw three fractions here, and I'm going to go ahead and change this one into y plus 2 times y minus 2. And I'm not going to need to change anything on the numerator, so I'll just leave that negative 4y. So now going back to this first one, I have 3y over y plus 2 now. What I need to do is I need to multiply the numerator and the denominator by y minus 2. And in the second fraction, I already have y minus 2 in the denominator. So now I just need to multiply both the numerator and the denominator by y plus 2. Now I have common denominators all the way across. So my next step is going to be to multiply all these out and put them in one numerator so I can see what's what. So 3y times y will give me 3y squared, and 3y times negative 2 will give me a negative 6y. Then I have a plus sign, and then I do y times y, which is y squared, and y times 2, which is 2y. And then another plus sign, and then I just get to stick that negative 4y on there because that's not getting multiplied by anything. And then this whole thing is over my common denominator of y plus 2 times y minus 2. Okay, so then our next step is going to be to combine all of our like terms. So first I'll deal with the y squareds, and it looks like I'm going to have 4y squares. And I'll put check marks over those so that I can keep up with things. And then I have a negative 6y, a positive 2y, and a negative 4y. So that is going to add together to be a negative 8y. And then I will put check marks here, and I see that everything is checked off, so that makes me happy. And I'm still over the same common denominator of y plus 2 times y minus 2. Sometimes students say, you know, how do you know that you're not supposed to multiply this out? And the answer is, well, really, you're always trying to get to these little packets of happiness, and you have already reached the packets of happiness. So probably you're not going to have to do anything. I'm not going to say for sure you don't have to do anything, because very little is for sure in life, but I'm pretty sure that you're not going to want to do anything. So let's keep messing with our numerator, shall we? So our numerator is now 4y squared minus 8y, which is not in the smallest type of happiness packet that it can be. So how could we break that down more? Well, we could suck a 4y out, and that would leave us with y minus 2. And then again, we still have our denominator. And now we're starting to see some real progress being made, because now we are going to be able to cancel out those packets of happiness. So our final answer is going to be 4y over y plus 2. And that is as low as we can go. All right, let's take a look at number 8. Number 8 is nice because it's so much easier. Okay, so what is our common denominator going to be? It's going to be w squared. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to multiply the numerator and denominator of this fraction by w. So we will wind up with 6w over w squared plus 7 over w squared. And then combining our numerator, we get 6w plus 7 all over w squared. Can you reduce 6w plus 7 at all? Nope, you're pretty much stuck with it. So this is our final answer. Except that I made my 7 look like a 1. There we go. Okay. All right, so now we're back to number 9. And number 9 is a uglier one, and it's ugly for 2 reasons. First of all, you have these completely different denominators that aren't even sort of close to each other. And we also have this negative sign, and I want to talk about this negative sign first. So here's what many students would do, and this is wrong, so pay attention and then don't ever do this. They would change this into a plus, and they would change the x into a negative. And that is incorrect. Why? Because this whole thing gets changed. Not just the x. You also have to change the 2. The entire fraction changes, not just one little part of it. So that means that I'm going to rewrite this first fraction, x minus 5 over 2x plus 3, plus now, and now, look, I'm going to change this a little bit, negative x minus 2 over 6x minus 7. So notice that I took my negative 1 here and I distributed it over both terms in that numerator. So I get negative x minus 2. This is the correct way to handle that negative sign. If you handle it the way I mentioned before, which I won't even repeat because it's so wrong, if you insist on doing it that way because you just don't like my way, well, you will get every single problem like this very, very wrong. So don't do it. Don't do it. Just accept the fact that this is the way math works and you got to do it this way. All right, so now let's give ourselves a common denominator. So this first fraction, I already have x minus 5, and it's already over 2x plus 3. But I need to include this 6x minus 7. So I'm going to multiply the numerator and the denominator by 6x minus 7. And then I'm going to change this fraction. Currently, I have negative x minus 2 over 6x minus 7. And I am going to have to now multiply the numerator and the denominator by 2x plus 3. Okay, this makes me very happy because now I have a common denominator. So now I can work on multiplying these things out. And you see I have a binomial up here and I have a binomial up here. So it is going to be long and ugly. Are you ready? I hope you're ready. Let me get a different color and then let's go at it. Okay, x times 6x will give us 6x squared, and x times negative 7 will give us negative 7x. Then negative 5 times 6x will give us a negative 30x, and negative 5 times negative 7 will give us a positive 35. Okay, now we're done with this one, so now we get to come over here. I'm going to put a plus sign, and then I'll say, okay, negative x times 2x will give us negative 2x squared. Negative x times positive 3 will give us a negative 3x. Negative 2 times positive 2x will give us a negative 4x. And negative 2 times positive 3 will give us a negative 6. My gosh, I said it was going to be long. I wasn't kidding, was I? Okay, and this is all over 2x plus 3 times 6x minus 7. So now you know what our next step is, right? Our next step is we have to shrink this equation down. I mean, we just can't continue on with that type of insanity. So let's work on that. We'll do our x squareds first. Here I have a 6x squared, and here I have a negative 2x squared. That will give me a 4x squared. And now I can deal with my x's. I'm going to use my calculator. -7 minus 30 minus 3 minus 4 equals -44. -44x. So I did the -7, the -30, the -3, and the -4. All right, and all I have left now is 35 minus 6, which I can do in my head, and I get 29. And I put that all over my common denominator, which is still 2x plus 3 times 6x minus 7. So all the work in this problem is really being done in the numerator. Okay, so now we have a quadratic equation that needs to be factored, but we have an ugly coefficient, which is just a bummer, isn't it? So let's come up here and let's make our little ugly coefficient calculation. 4x squared times -29. Let's see if we do this math, what do we get? 4 times 29 is 116. So that's -116x squared. So now what we want to do is we want to see if we can think of any numbers, two numbers, that multiply together to make -116, but add together to make -44. And so you think about this. And you think about this some more. And, ooh, and look at, I made a mistake. Oh, man, look at this. I said this was going to be -29. It's a +35 and a -6. It needs to be +29. Those darn negative signs, they're always sneaking up on you. Fortunately, that just means that we have a +116 here. Okay, don't get sidetracked. You're trying to think of two numbers that multiply together to make 116 and add together to make -44. And we could sit here all day long and you would not be able to think of those two numbers because they do not exist. So this cannot be broken down. These are already completely broken down, and there are no packets of happiness to cancel out. Therefore, that one is our final answer.